Neurodiversity and ability testing. Now, a lot of employment organizations are concerned about the impact of their selection processes on neurodiversity and how the various assessment tools that they use may impact neurodivergent candidates. And that makes perfect sense, and that's something you should absolutely be concerned about. You don't want to put up artificial barriers. You don't want to just limit your applicant pool to neurotypical candidates. You would like the full breadth of talent. It makes sense. However, organizations almost always get this the wrong way round. They assume from the outset, for whatever reason, that their existing processes are perfect from a neurodivergence perspective, and that adding anything else could only make it worse, when the reality is almost exactly the opposite. That traditional assessments like CB sifting and interviews are perhaps the most harmful when it comes to neurodivergence. It's just the perfect tool to allow through conscious, unconscious, and indeed indirect bias into the recruitment process, with no way of stopping it fundamentally. Ability tests, on the other hand, are much more standardized, much more structured, much more repeatable, and remove the human element from the process. As a result, it removes the potential for unconscious and implicit bias. Organizations are often trying to make things more human-centric, which often just means more bias. Instead, ability testing is a very useful way around that. That being said, there are considerations when it comes to neurodivergence. We know from the research that neurodivergent candidates, on average, show very similar levels of cognitive ability to neurotypical candidates. It's really not about the amount of cognitive ability. That's not how it works. And as a result, they should be just as valid and useful as predictors of performance for neurodivergent groups as they are neurotypical groups. However, one of the big differences is often information speed and the speed of processing. One tiny facet, but has big implications, obviously, for testing, because assessments are usually timed, and they're usually timed for practical purposes, to keep the pace, to limit cheating, that sort of thing. As a result, the solution which works almost all of the time is to just give extra time to the assessments, to account for slower processing speed by giving them more time to process. It makes perfect sense. That's the choke point. That's the area of contention. That's important because with interviews, it's a syndrome of problems that you can't fix, ultimately. It's too many problems, and the problems themselves are just too complex to have a simple solution. Like, you have applicants with, let's say, autism. Just giving them an extra 25% extra time in an interview is not helping anyone. That doesn't solve any problem whatsoever, because the interviewer has made their opinion already in the first 10 seconds. Giving extra time helps nothing at all. However, when information processing speed is the contentious issue, that is the area of concern, that is the only real driver fundamentally of performance differences, you can account for that so easily by giving extra time. It's a problem that is very easily solved. There are other things too, ensuring that platforms are compatible with accessibility software, browser extensions, things that can change the text, things that can change the background, the contrast, screen readers potentially. Your ability to make adjustments is so much greater with ability tests than it is interviews. So much, infinitely greater. And as a result, it's substantially fairer. It's a lot more predictive of performance. It's a lot more structured and standardized. It is very much the way to go. So don't avoid using ability tests because you think it will harm neurodiversity. These are very powerful tools to ensure it, and you can level that playing field so easily. We have such a strong understanding of what you need to do. It just makes sense to make use of them.